I'm John Graham. I live in Ottawa, and I'm reading an excerpt from my father's Convoy diary, based on experiences in the North Atlantic in 1942. My father was a lieutenant commander based at Royal Roads Naval College on Vancouver Island, and several times he was assigned convoy duty in the North Atlantic. This excerpt is postscript to his diary, to the time he spent on the British destroyer HMS Harvester. It is 6 months later. It is based on correspondence with survivors, March 1943. In dusky morning light, the Harvester wallowed in a gentle sea. During the night, her port propeller shaft had been damaged when she rammed and sank a U-boat. Going ahead at 12 knots on one engine, the strain had been too great and the starboard shaft had broken. A corvette had been summoned back to give assistance, and already her smoke was visible on the horizon as the first torpedo struck. There was no panic, hardly more than a slight tingle of excitement as the captain looked aft and called out, "Abandon ship." On the upper deck, men went about their tasks unhurriedly, knocking the slips off Carly floats and preparing the whalers. Snotty's cheerful grin was in broad evidence over the bent heads of his men as they worked on the number 1 raft. Gunn's pungent humor advertised the fact that someone might get wet. Number 1 had gone below hardly a minute after the first. The second torpedo struck. Harvester reared up for a moment and then split in half, the forecastle and the stern slowly settling. On the surface, 5 Carly rafts, a few float nets, and sundry pieces of wreckage rocked on the swell. Doc fought his way to the surface, where he had been blown from the deck far under the water and away from the forecastle, which seemed to keep bearing down on him. The icy water caught at his lungs and numbed his limbs as he swam slowly to a raft already filled with survivors who had escaped the second blast. He grasped a lifeline beside the sub-lieutenant. Of the captain and number 1, there was no sign. The chief engineer was safe but wounded. Guns had reached another raft, some 100 yards away. They saw the corvette, a Free French corvette, race in and destroy the U-boat which had risen to the surface to survey its handiwork. If death had to come, this was a fitting curtain to the months and months of cruel, painfully exacting, and sometimes unbearably monotonous toil on the North Atlantic. The sub-lieutenant's fingers slipped from the lifeline. Doc followed. A few minutes before the triumphant corvette bore down to the rescue, Guns died too.